G'day everyone. Thought I'd just run the camera while I'm wiring up one of these fuzz faces, kind of like what I did with the last video about drilling. It's not about how to wire up a stomp box. If you want more information about that sort of stuff, go check out the off-board wiring diagrams on TonePad or the standardized wiring schematic on MadBean. This is going to be more about how to sort of route your wires. I'm not the authority on neat wiring, but I might be able to show you a few tricks on how to get something that looks relatively neat. Okay, so it's quite difficult for me to actually get in on the circuit board. I've got the camera directly above the pedal and the light is also above the pedal, so sorry if you're going to lose sight of what's going on as I'm doing this, but yeah, it's a bit tight for me to actually work in. Yeah, and hopefully this is interesting too. It's not just a waste of time. So first thing I'm going to do, I've already done a couple of things. You can see that the LED down the bottom here is already soldered in, and you know, you just use I've just used some heat shrink on the plus and the minus, and then I've just hot glued the LED down, because obviously you don't want you know, this is going on eBay, and I don't want, if someone hits the switch, I don't want that to actually pop out the other side, and if it doesn't have any resistance on the other side, it's just going to come out. If they well, if they step on it hard enough, it will anyway. And I've just put the little link on the on those two lugs down the bottom of the stomp switch. You can use a bit of wire, but I find it looks a bit neater if you just use a little link like that. So next I'll do the plus up the top here on the DC jack, so the LED and the board plus will go to that. I'm not actually going to be explaining how to wire this stuff up. I'm just sort of demonstrating how I wire it up and some tricks that I do just to make it look a bit neater. So you basically want to roughly get the wires where at the right length. So just sort of push them in till they're about the right length, and then you're gonna chop them at the right length, and then solder them in next. So I actually recorded the intro last night. I can't remember actually what I said in the intro, but yeah, look, I'm not the authority on neat wiring. I can do an alright job, but you know, there's some people out there that are just absolute ninjas at this stuff. But I mean, my perspective is I just want to get it looking nice. I don't have to, you know, without spending a hell of a lot of time. But you know, don't make, like, just as long as it doesn't look messy, pretty much. So I've routed those two up to the top there. You should be able to see. I've just routed those two together, and I'm just going to solder those into the lug. And it's a good idea not to actually push when you put the wires through the lug hole, not to actually push them down and then solder them, because if you have to get them back out again, the wires will resist you pulling the wire back out again, because you've bent the end of them. So if you leave them straight when you wire, and I do this on all lugs, not just the power jack. If you solder them straight through, if you need to remove them later, it's just easier to get them back out again. Actually, no, that's a lie. I actually bend them over on the input and output lug, because they're usually pretty easy to get out anyway. Okay, so that's the plus. Now the in and out. This is a board that I've actually designed myself, and I've only actually designed a couple of PCBs, so the layout's not perfect. But the in and out need to go on the opposite side to each other. I'm just getting this wire out of the way because it's in my way. So this will be the output, which will go over to this side. So again, I'm just roughly guessing how long it's going to be. You know, you just sort of route it where you want it to go, like, you know, something sort of similar to that is how I'm going to route this one. And I'll probably just cut it a bit shorter than that because it's got a bit of length on it. And then you just strip it like so. And again, don't bend the wire strands once you put it into the lug. Leave them straight in case you have to pull them back out again, and then just solder that on. And here's a tip: actually check that these, particularly on the 3-pole double throw, check that you've soldered it properly. So that means lifting it to the side and making sure that the wire is actually soldered onto the lug, because often it's a bit of a noob tip, but often when you do that, it looks like it's soldered from the top. When you look at it side on, there's a blob of solder at the top, and then the wire's just poking through. It's not even connected properly. So now that that's done, you just route it where you want it to go. And we'll do the same for the input jack next. The input wire. So I'm pretty sure I said this in the introduction, but yeah, this is more about the neatness of wiring a pedal, not how to wire a pedal. It's a different. That's a different topic. This is just how I wire it, so you can watch me do it, and it might give you some tips, or it might give you some ideas, or whatever. It might help you with your neatness. Okay, so that's that one. Now there's a wire that goes from this lug down the bottom here up to this one up here. But there's actually 2 wires that go into that one, so I'm going to solder this one first. And then just, again, guess roughly about how long it needs to be. Cut that off, strip it. And then grab your pliers. You really need, for this task, you really need a pair of decent needle nose pliers. They're just precise. It's essential. And then there's another wire that needs to go into that, so I'm not going to solder that just yet. Let's grab some wire. Also, the wire that you use is important for as far as neatness goes as well, because if you use wire that's thicker gauge, like the first wire that I started using was I've actually still got a bit left of it somewhere. So yeah, the first wire that I used was the red wire. I'm using the blue at the moment, and it's probably going to be impossible to see on the camera, but it's almost double the size. And all of the pedals that I wired up with this hookup wire. It's the Jaycar hookup wire that you get on the reel. It's too thick. Every pedal that I built with that stuff turned out just messy as, just didn't look very good. So you want to go for something thinner. And I'm pretty sure I'm using AWG 24 now, whereas that stuff I think was AG 20. It was just too thick. A lot of the reason behind not being able to solder to wire things up neatly, I think, comes from the actual size of the wire. You got to find the right type of wire and the right size, because the stiffness of the wire and the thickness pretty much are the 2 main things as far as that goes. And it'll probably take some time before you actually find what works best for you. Some people like solid core, some people like stranded. And there's also the coating, that the insulating material that they use. Some are stiffer than others. It's all pretty much personal preference as far as that goes. So I'm just guessing with this one how far it's going to go into the jack. I've already routed it down the side. Come up the back here. I'm actually going to go through the front. It's probably going to be impossible to see. I'm actually going through in sort of from the inside of the jack and soldering it onto the top of the lug there. So I'll just roughly guess how long it's going to be, strip the end, and then solder it on. I'll show you what I mean by that solder through the front, through the inside of the jack once I've done it. So you might be able to see there, I've actually gone in from the inside, and the wire, if I can hold it the right way, is on the outside. The strands of wire that you solder onto is on the outside. You don't want to do it the other way around, otherwise you'll be soldering on the inside of the jack. Obviously that just doesn't make sense. And also, as I said before, I actually fold the strands down on these lugs because they're quite large, but I don't fold them down on the smaller lugs like the 3-pole double throw or the DC jack. So if you can hide a wire somewhere, do it, because the less wires that you can see, the neater it looks as well. So for instance, that one that I just did on the input jack, so you can see I've gone underneath on the inside of the enclosure, because there's usually, you can see there's usually a bit of a gap that you can actually run wires on the bottom side of it. If you hide the wire, yeah, the more wires you hide, the less messy it'll look. So underneath the PCB, underneath the jacks, all that sort of stuff. And obviously when you finish this as well, you can spend, you know, a couple of minutes just sort of rerouting or messing around with where the wires are going inside to make it look neat. In fact, it's worthwhile just spending a couple of minutes doing that, because you can usually make it look neater just by, you know, moving stuff around. Okay, so I just noticed in the video it's difficult to see what's going on with my hands in the way and everything, so I just finished wiring up the output jack to the 3-pole double throw and the 2 grounds to the input. So a few things that you can pretty much get from this video. Basically, what I'm trying to get across is put in a wire that's longer than what you need, route it where you want it to go, and then cut it pretty much to the length that you need, strip it, solder it in, and then route it back where you originally had routed it, is the best way to get short wires that look neat. Also, a few other things: if you put the wire through the lug and you have little strands that don't go through the hole, try and solder them on. Even though they are loose, try and solder them on so they're not flying around, or cut them off. It's just a reliability thing. You don't want little strands of wire, you know, like particularly on the DC jack, because you'll get a short between plus and minus, for instance. And if you can hide any wires, do it, because the less wires that you can see, the neater it looks, whether that be under the PCB or under the lugs, or, you know, like using the little link on the 3-pole double throw instead of a wire. The less wires that you see, the neater it looks. And probably the most important tip is use the smallest wire that you can, well, within reason, of course, but usually I've seen most people on the forums say between 22 and 26. I think 26 is probably a bit too small for me. I think 22 is a bit too big, so I go for 24, but that's a personal preference. And just use whatever wire that you find easiest to route and work with. Solid core can be unreliable. You need to be pretty skilled to use it, in my opinion. It's not really my cup of tea, but some people use it. Some people come up with some great looking neat interiors of stomp boxes. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, just spend a bit of time planning it, and also when you're finished, even if it looks messy, just spend a couple of minutes trying to route a few of these wires out of the way and hide them, and you might find that a pedal that you thought doesn't look that great and looks kind of messy ends up coming up pretty good, because you've taken a bit of time just to route the wires and hide some of the wires and things like that. So I hope that turned out to be an interesting video. Wasn't sure if it was going to be useful or not, but it's probably going to be useful for people that are new to building pedals, and yeah, hopefully it'll help you get your pedals looking neat on the inside. I wouldn't obsess over it. You know, I know there's some people that spend a lot of time getting the interiors, you know, looking immaculate. It's personal preference, but you know, personally I think that as long as it's neat and reliable, it's probably the most important thing. The most important thing really is how it sounds. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.